now we're going to be using what we just learned in example 3 in context in example 4. So it's really the exact same skill. So a company is using this formula to relate revenue and advertising costs. So in theory, if you increase your advertising costs, you should be increasing the amount of money you bring in, right? So we have R is equal to 12 log of A plus 1 plus 25, right? So what is the equation of the inverse of the formula? So we're going to find that inverse, just the same process that we did in last example. And then which equation would be easier to use to find a value of A for a particular value of R? So meaning we're substituting R into the formula and we're solving for A. So obviously you'd want A to be by itself if you know R and you're solving for A. So that's the whole point. If you have this function, it'd be easier to use the function that's solved for A. So we want the inverse. So same process. Here's your original function. First thing they do is subtract 25 to the other side. Basically, we're just solving for A, right? Then divide everything by 12. Now you've got R minus 25 over 12 is equal to the log of A plus 1. Now you're going to rewrite it in exponential form, where since it's common log, the base is 10. The exponent is everything on the other side of the equation, and it's equal to A plus 1, so then we just subtract 1 to the other side. So this is the inverse formula, and again, it's easier to use this one to solve for A if you know R. You just plug R in and then evaluate. All right, there's a try it question. So why don't you give that question a try and then come back and check answers. So again, as your value, as your advertising cost increases, your revenue should increase, but it's logarithmically. So at a certain point, the amount of if you keep increasing advertising costs, the amount that the revenue is increasing is not going to be as much, right? It's going to keep increasing, but your value is probably not going to be the same. So there's a certain point where you probably want to figure out like what's going to give you the biggest bang for the buck, essentially. You could also think of it in terms of like, well, what's the revenue that I want, and then back into the amount of advertising costs that you're going to need to get there. All right, let's look at example 5.